Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. Today we're going to talk about the power of speech, and not only discuss the words that we say, but how we say them. We're going to talk about how to be an effective communicator and how we can empower others. We're going to be hearing from very successful entrepreneur, author, and national speaker, Mary Rieseberg. And Mary has empowered thousands of people across the U.S. She's got a huge vision and a great message, and we're going to learn some tips today of how we can not only communicate effectively in our personal lives, but in growing our business as well. Stay tuned. We're going to give you a lot of great information. You're not going to want to go anywhere. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back. You know, I wanted to take a minute to discuss something that we're dealing with in the Gulf Coast, and something that we're really embarking on. Many people don't know this outside of the Gulf Coast, but the Gulf Coast has been hammered over and over again in recent years. Several years back, they experienced numerous hurricanes that were very detrimental to the area, not only small business. And then they had the economy, the meltdown in '08, and then they had another hurricane, and then after that, it was like the year, and then the oil spill. It seems like that the Gulf Coast just hasn't been able to get a break. And we've actually started, here at Tuesdays with Dan, we've actually started a campaign where we're actually going to every single mayor. There's hundreds of mayors all over the Gulf Coast, but we've actually started a petition to go to every mayor in the Gulf Coast, have them sign a petition to officially make it Entrepreneur Day, where they recognize entrepreneurs and small business. And particularly what we want them to do is, the day is actually October 3rd, and what we want entrepreneurs and small business owners to do is to take that day and to really reflect on their business. What can they do to streamline their business? What can they do to increase profits or cut costs? Or possibly, what can they do to create more jobs in the area? And, I thought that was a fitting date, October 3rd, because, we're just the beginning of the last quarter. And as most small business and entrepreneurs know, a lot of times with fixed overhead, the last quarter is the one where we get a lot of the money. It's the time to really increase profit. And the last quarter also starts setting the pace for what we're going to be able to accomplish next year. So we just want everybody to really focus on that day, how they can impact the community, how they can create jobs. And what we're also asking small business owners to do for that day is to really be conscious of supporting local business. Instead of going shopping at the big national chain, support the local guy. Instead of going to dinner that night at the national chain, support the local, hole in the wall down the street. We want to put that money into our economy. So October 3rd, look for it, and write your mayors now and tell them we want to be a part of this as a local community. Now, my guest tonight, Mary Rieseberg, she's a very successful entrepreneur, and not only author and national speaker, but she's been a coach, a life coach, or an empowerment coach for many, many years. I actually met Mary recently. There was an event for local celebrities, and they had the cast with Dancing with the Stars, the dancers from Dancing with the Stars. And I was actually there doing interviews, and they asked her to be a part of the show and to be one of the dancers. And I'll have to tell you, I was thinking about having her on the show, and when I heard her speak and then I saw her dance, I said, well, this is a lady we have to have on the show. So without further ado, let me welcome our guest, Mary Rieseberg. Pleasure to see you again. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
I'll tell you, I love what you're wearing, but I have to say that red dress that you were wearing at the event was stunning. Everybody was like, who is that gal? But that was such an amazing event. I know the event was for a great cause, for hospice.
For Covenant Hospice.
Covenant Hospice. And many people know that my father passed away not too long ago of cancer, and we certainly used hospice services, and they're amazing. What could I say? They tell you exactly what's going to happen, and we appreciate you being a part of that event as well.
It was my pleasure to do it. It was a fantastic, fun time. Not many people can go out there and say they got to dance with the stars you see on the ABC Dancing with the Stars. And I got to be on stage with him. It was a once-in-a-lifetime event.
Well, we were talking earlier about that, and I saw you dancing. Now, was it more of a freestyle, or was it kind of a specific, like a tango or a...
It was everything mixed into one, and it's funny you say that now. I prepared for that fundraiser, and I actually had my first official dance lesson last week. So I went through months of training of dance, but never had a lesson. On TV,
whatever, but never had
a lesson until last week.
When you were doing it, it seemed amazing, but you said that when you went back and watched the film, it looked like it was slow.
Yes.
But when you're actually there, it's you're flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, so in my mind, and I'm moving, my body's moving, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm spinning fast, I have my hand up, and my posture's the way it should be, and it's in your mind and in your body, you're just moving almost at the speed of light. And then I looked at it on the DVD recording, I'm going,
is that me?
It?
Yeah.
I felt like there should have been more.
Yeah, you just have to speed the tape up a little bit.
Yeah, maybe I just need to fast forward on it.
Well, you can imagine when you watch a show like Dancing with the Stars, it looks fast. I mean, so you can imagine the way it feels, you know, doing it. It was amazing. But again, it was a great cause. And I wanted to hear a little bit about your background. I know that I mentioned several things that you've done, but tell us a little bit about how you got started with your background.
It started, I would say, back when I was a child. As a young girl, I had a speech impediment. Myself, if anybody can relate, I had a lisp, and I would be the thee by the thief or kind of person, and I had speech therapy when I was in elementary school. And I vividly remember my speech teacher at the time and going to the classes and getting to go to the treasure box when I accomplished all my goals. And when I was preparing for college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was flipping through the catalog, and I saw a speech-language pathologist, and I said, that's what I want to do. Yeah. And that's what I went off and I did exactly that.
Yeah. Well, I had for a while, years ago, I had a speech coach, and the only thing I took away is I was able to say a box of biscuits, a box of mixed biscuits, and a biscuit mixer. I didn't learn anything else, but I can say that. I'm not sure how it's helped me with the show, but hey.
Well, you just did it, so it must have been successful.
It worked a little bit.
It worked.
It helps. Well, I know that you have worked with a lot of great people, and you've empowered thousands of people, obviously. But we actually have a mutual acquaintance.
Yes, we do.
Paul Martinelli. Yes. I actually, amazing guy. I don't know Paul really well. We did an event a couple of years ago, and it was me and Paul and Grant Wistrom from the Rams and Les Brown, which I know Paul still does quite a bit. They've been dear friends. And it was an amazing show. And when we first talked and you mentioned speech, I said, you know, I know a guy. And you said, well, Paul's one of my coaches.
Paul's my mentor, yes. I met Paul several years ago through his empowerment mentorship program, and he's still one of the people I look to as far as a mentor to follow and a coach. And he's now with the John Maxwell team. He's the president of the John Maxwell team. I
didn't realize he was president. I do want to talk about that because John Maxwell, obviously, he's everywhere. I was in Africa a couple of years ago, and I had just left, I think, when he was on his way there, or vice versa. Maybe he was just, but we had just passed each other. And we know a lot of the same people, but I've never actually had the privilege to sit down with them and meet them. I know he was in Pensacola recently, and I had an event in Connecticut, and we kind of missed each other again. But I do want to talk about what John has going, and also I know you're very involved as well. So let's take a short break, and we'll be back with Mary Rieseberg in a minute. Stay tuned. Thank you. Welcome back. I'm here with Mary Rieseberg, a very successful entrepreneur and speech-language pathologist. Is that what we're calling it? Or I always called it a speech coach.
It can be a speech coach, a speech therapist. If you want to get very technical, it's a speech-language pathologist. It depends
I'm not
on,
that technical.
I'm not that technical either. So.
Well, let me ask you a question. We were going to talk a little bit about what John C. Maxwell, I know he's got a lot going on that you're very much a part of. But first of all, with a voice coach or a speech coach, what kind of people normally would seek out your services? I know with Paul, he had a very bad lisp or stutter. And I was actually surprised because when I saw him on stage, he was very articulate, and he did this big bit about, I mean, it was just amazing what he did, and his background, I mean, he was a guardian angel, and all, I mean,
He's got a great background, great
yeah,
story.
very colorful
Great
background.
story.
But what type of people would be searching out a service like this?
It can be a wide range of people. I'm just going to start on one spectrum and head to the other. But it could be somebody who just might have a mild lisp, or their speech just isn't clear for some reason. And what I find myself doing more now is really working with professional speakers, professional CEOs, lawyers, singers.
I was going to ask you about
that. More the vocal professional. Your profession is your life, and I think anybody who is an entrepreneur, small business owner, your voice is your business. You have to be able to go out there and promote your business to the community and let people know. And first, people will look at you, and then they will listen to you. So the two together are very, very powerful.
Well, see, now you got me very conscious of, like, what was I saying? Was I using hem haws? Don't judge me, Mary. Yeah,
I'm
taking notes. But so, you know, originally I thought maybe it was people, like you said, that had a stutter or a speech impediment. But I was going to ask, you know, it seems that a lot of us make our living speaking. And, you know, now you're kind of seeing CEOs and people that speak for a living saying, you know what, I need to invest in my craft, because if I can fix this or kind of, you know, really acquire more skill sets in this certain thing, I can do no more work, put in no more hours, but increase a lot of revenue and effectively help bring my message to millions of other people, and maybe it resonates with more people.
And you're exactly right. One of the goals that I have is to really teach empowering communication and leadership, and work with the leaders, whether it's in a small business, in a community, and let them create their own authentic voice that's going to represent them and their businesses at its very best.
Yeah. Well, you know, again, now we had talked that you're doing it. You're going to an event in the near future with
Roger Love.
Roger Love, who many people don't know is the Tony Robbins speech coach.
Yes.
And you wouldn't, if you've ever met Tony, you wouldn't think he needs a coach, but that's why he has one, is because he recognizes the need to be the best.
And anybody who speaks for any long period of time, if you are a presenter and you have a seminar for 6 hours and you're going and you're speaking and then you mingle and then you have PR relations in between, you really have to learn how to utilize your voice and maximize it so you can keep your voice throughout an entire day.
Right.
A lot of people have to build up to that type of work. It's a vocal workout is what I call it.
That's true. And you have to protect your voice as well, because if you're not using the right range or whatever, I know some people in the industry, let's say in the speaking industry, you know, 45, 50 years old, their voice sounds 75. You know, they just ruin their voice by not approaching it right. Let me ask you personally, on a personal note, how has communication played into your role as more of the leadership coach side of things?
What I've noticed is that I have found phenomenal people who have a passion in their life that they have to actually get out, and they have difficulty finding their own unique, authentic voice. So they have this enormous passion built up inside. They want to start a business. They're an entrepreneur. They're a leader in the community, and they really want to be a catalyst for change, but their speech or their voice, their language, their body posturing, what they do with their hands when they're talking, so many things, everybody sits up straighter when I say that. So many things come into play to really make the communication effective and empowering. So my personal goal is to really go and offer what I can to build that confidence in speakers, help speakers overcome the fear of going out in front of people, and really just build them up so they are truly using the best voice possible.
Right. Well, and we were always taught in sales, you know, that the words you say is maybe only 7% of a sale, and then the voice and how you say it is 38%, and then your body language is 55%. But I know that you're really encompassing all of it. You're showing them not the words, but also how they're going to present it, and how it is important to integrate the proper body language when they're communicating it. And that is kind of the overall. You're handling it all, A to Z.
Handling it all. I do a lot, and I like to videotape, and we go back, we look at the videotape. We look at the pacing of the speech, the intonation at the end of a sentence going up, to a listener's ear means a lot to keep them in tune and engaged to what the speaker is talking about, versus a sentence that then goes down at the very end.
Right.
Because you lose them. And it's just some of those basic things you can help somebody with to really kick up their communication and speech presentation skills to a whole new level for them.
Well, and you know, I know that, and maybe probably most don't have the opportunity to do this, but a lot of times we'll film the show or we'll film something else, and I'll go back. It sounds brilliant, you know, in my mind, but I'll go back and watch it, and you know, the information is the way the information I wanted to present, but the delivery, it's just not. I'm like, that's the way it looks when I delivered it, or that's the pitch or the end or how I, you know, and I do self-critique a lot, and I go back and I watch, and then I say, okay, next time I'm gonna change this part about it, change that. But if you don't have that available to you to be able to go back and watch it, and then you could be out there for years and years and years. And you know, I used to actually run a lineup where I was not only a speaker, but I would hire other speakers, and we would travel and do a big lineup. And I did that for several years. And a lot of times we would have these people that had a great background, they had the experience, they were successful, they were articulate speakers. But when they took the stage, it was just something wasn't right. You know what I mean? It was just flat. And I couldn't even pinpoint it. I would watch him and I'd say, everything he's saying is great. He's energetic. He's got the look. I would never remember this guy in 10 minutes from now. I will not remember one thing he's saying. So I know delivery, it is very important.
Very important.
Well, let's take a short break. I want to talk to you a little bit about John, how you're involved with John C. Maxwell's program. And I want to hear a few tips, if I can, of, you know, if our audience is listening, what we can do to become better communicators. More with Mary Rieseberg in a minute. Don't go anywhere. Thank you. Welcome back. I'm here with the unbelievable and gorgeous Mary Rieseberg. And I will tell you, not only is she talented, author, communicator, you know, national speaker, but that girl, she can dance too. And do you think if they invite you back next year for the event, you'll go again?
Absolutely, I'll be there. I will, yes.
Well, I would thought maybe you have some dance history, because you look at those dancers, they're in absolutely amazing shape. And I've had friends that have actually been on certain dance shows, and they'll say, you know, I've done my workout, lift weights, run, everything. As soon as I started dancing, I dropped the weight, I got in shape. It's a real workout.
It's more of a workout than you think it will be after, you know, maybe even 2 or 3 minutes, and you're really moving quickly. Your heart's just pounding, and you're doing a short cardio workout right there.
Yeah, and it's fun. You're not thinking
and
about it.
It's a lot of fun.
We were talking about, you know, the importance of delivery, the importance of being an effective communicator. And I know that there's people out there right now that are saying, you know what, maybe I have a speech impediment, or maybe I have a lisp, or maybe I have, maybe I just use my voice for a living, and what can I do? Simple things I can take away and go have an increase right now in my business or in my marriage or personal life or whatever. What are a few nuggets you can give us?
Sure, I'd love to share. Some of the common things I work on, first off, is I look at breath support. Oftentimes people will continue to speak on one breath, and they're going and going and going and going until they're going, and they get to the end and they're just straining and straining their voice to get the words out. And you really compromise your vocal cords at that time, and you put a great amount of strain on your voice. So breath support, making sure you have the air that you need to say what it is you want to say.
Well, especially when you're nervous too, because I know that that's happened to me a few times where you kind of do the Jim Carrey thing, and you're like, and we're here with Mary Rieseberg, you have to try to say everything, and you forget to breathe. But that is a very good point.
Breath support is very important. Pausing when you speak allows you time to breathe, which is very important. And it's a very natural thing to the listener's ear. People don't always think of that they can actually pause. They don't have to use an or a filler or a so. They just actually pause, breathe, and then pick up with the next sentence. And for the listener, it allows the listener time to catch up with what it is they were talking about. Another thing is really to look at the pitch. You'll have speakers who will come on, and I think we probably have all heard a speaker, and they speak at the same tone the entire time, and you're like a Mr. Robot, and you're thinking, oh, is this ever going to end? Because if not, I just am going to fall asleep right now. But inflecting the pitch, thinking of it like a voice roller coaster. So your voice is here, goes up, it goes down, it goes up, and it goes down, and it engages the listener's ear. And the last thing I want to talk about is volume. A lot of times people will not speak loud enough, and when you pull your voice into you and you think, okay, I'm next to you, I need to speak a little bit softer, you really put a lot of strain on the vocal cords by doing that. And the same token, if you really want to project your voice, you want to make sure you have the breath support you need, the right pitch, and then the right volume to really get your voice out there and really get it up without having to use any more energy.
Well, you know, and those are great points, and I particularly, the second point that you were making, I know personally that has resonates with me, because sometimes I will talk to where I'm like, you kind of lose your breath, you know, and you know, and then I've always been taught that you want peaks, you know, and I've had speakers in the past that their whole, it might not be monotone in the way that we would think about it, hey, I'm so-and-so, but it's a high energy talk, but the whole thing is high energy. And at a certain point, I mean, in my mind, that's actually a form of being monotone, because there's no lows. And you don't really know what to focus on. It all sounds exciting. It's like, man, we're doing this and this is, so you don't really know the main points that the person's trying to make. And the other thing is, when they're always at that level, it just exhausts you. You know, 15 minutes into it, I'm sitting there, I've just zoned out, because it's just too much energy.
Too much to listen to. Your brain will only process so much, and the higher frequencies in the volume over a long period of time will strain the listener's ears.
Yeah, and when you're speaking, and then you might get energetic, and then you might pause, it really lets the audience know, okay, this part, obviously it's coming up, it's a main point that I really need to pay attention to. This part, you know, he's taking longer for me to absorb this point, it must be important. But that's great. Now, Mary, I know that you're the first time on the show. We want to have you back for sure. It adds a little class to the show, and I'm more cognizant now of like what I'm doing, and I want you to go back and watch this and tell me what I'm doing wrong. But on our show, we actually make a business point of the day, or we try to give each episode a success principle. And in some cases, if I have an entrepreneur qualified enough that has done everything and accomplished everything you have, I want to, have them do it. And if you could, just tell us very quickly what you're doing with John C. Maxwell, and then any point that you would like to make to our viewers to give them that nugget that possibly could turn their business around.
All right. With John C. Maxwell, he now has a speaker, trainer, and coaching program. I'm one of the founding members of that program, so I've gone through the training. I have met John, his wife, and all of his team. They've really put together what I would consider a top-class program to really go out and teach John's material. And if I could give just one bit of nugget, I guess, or advice, entrepreneur nugget, would be for the entrepreneur or anybody who has a dream or a passion, is to just suspend the belief that you have to know everything before you go out there. You don't have to have a plan laid out from A to Z. All you really need to know is that there is an A, and you have enough passion in you, and your dream is big enough that you're willing to do what it takes to get to Z. So don't wait for it to all be laid out and pretty for you.
You might only have A, B, C.
You may just have A and a half.
Yeah, A and a half.
But if you have it and it's clear to you and you have that passion and that dream, go for it, and just suspend the belief that you have to know everything before you start.
Well, that's great advice, and I know I actually sign up. I get the John C. Maxwell point of the day. It's really helped out.
Yes, a minute with Maxwell. You get that.
And well, we really appreciate you having on the show, coming on the show, and giving us a little class. That's our show, guys. Don't forget to get involved in your local communities and be forgiving of others. Support local business first. And my special thanks to Mary Rieseberg. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. That was great. It was really good.